Good morning. This is David Henry Young. I want to do a couple of more videos here, a couple of stories I experienced in life, and it's funny about. I write, and I've been locally published a long time ago in Ithaca, New York. I have lots of friends that are writers that are published, and I just haven't gotten to something. I guess when somebody says, well, are you published? What are they thinking? I'm not there yet as far as a major publishing house. I tried a few things and it didn't work out. Anyway, there's a couple of stories when I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps. I was sworn in October 12th, 1966, and I was released on 8.5 months early, on an early out that they offered us Vietnam veterans in Okinawa when our tour was ending. And I had done 2 tours, a 13-month tour and an 8.5-month tour. The war was winding down, and they were trying to save money, so you could get out early up to, I think it was a year or something. And I had 8.5 months left of my first enlistment. I had orders to INI staff, that's instruction and inspection staff, in New York City. There's some kind of a Marine unit there, a reserve unit most likely, but it was part of the Marine Corps schools. And I was a buck sergeant, and they had offered me my new duty station was Marine Corps schools if I had accepted and basically shown up at the school and not taken this early out that was offered to us when we were on Okinawa for 2 weeks, getting cleaned up from the war. That I would have got another stripe. I would have been a very young staff sergeant and teaching my job, which was I was a radio repairman, technically, specifically of cryptographic radios, things that scrambled your message so that the enemy, all they heard was a bunch of beeps and boops, and they couldn't hear the actual voice message. Anyway, I accepted the early out. I didn't go to the duty station. Everything was taken care of in Okinawa, and I got out on when was it? It was in May of 1970. Anyway, that was a background to I wanted to. There's 2 words that came literally into my hearing, inside my being, in my heart, inside of me, as well as commands. One was to tuck, T-U-C-K, with a big exclamation mark, and the other one was duck, D-U-C-K, with an even more insistent call to obey. So the first one was I was in Marine Corps schools at San Diego, California. Marine Corps Recruit Depot, MCRD, San Diego, and started in February. And 8 months, almost 9 months later, I graduated the school. I went there as a private, and they guaranteed that if you make it through the school, that you'll be a corporal. And in a way, I mean, looking at Marine Corps history, in some periods of Marine Corps history, it take somebody 20, 25 years to make corporal. So, that was then, this is now. Back in 67, 68, I made it through the school. The fear of God was there. I didn't know anything about that at that time, but that's what it was the fear of God. They said the first day in school, staff sergeant instructor said, okay, you were told in boot camp that don't think, just obey, do it, And now we're telling you to start thinking, really thinking, and hearing us and receiving it and learn. and because it was electronics school, they were going to pump a double E electronic engineering degree into us in 9 months, 8.5 months. Straight electronics, it's like a college with nothing but your major, and it's 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week for about 9 months. And with the fear that if you could flunk once at the end of each week of that 9-month period, there was an exam on the data, the information that was given to us to understand and learn and commit to memory. You could flunk one exam. This next time you flunk a weekly exam, you were out of the school, and you now were a radio operator with the grunts in the field. And at that time in Vietnam, the radio operator was the prime target that the enemy would try to get when they were, seeking the enemy, fighting in the field. It was a radio operator. And it's just, what was it? The life expectancy at that time, in 67, 68, of a Marine radio operator in the field was 16 minutes. And that's what we heard. Maybe it was a day and a half, but it's enough to scare you, enough to, get your head and ass wired together and learn. And so I did. And to my own shock, I graduated the school. I became a corporal eventually. It was heavy in mathematics and science, the science of mathematics and, the science of the frequencies, the radios, electronics, and all this stuff. And, I flunked most of my math courses in high school. They graduated me by giving me a point in 1966. So I pretty much thought I was pretty stupid. I get through boot camp, 120 guys start. 12 weeks later, we graduate 63 now newly graduating Marines from boot camp. 4 out of the 63 got non-infantry jobs. I was one of them, and they sent me to this electronics school. Blew me away. I had no idea what was inside of me, but that's what they do. They find what's inside you, and for whatever things that the Marine Corps needs, that's what you get. Just because you're a great writer, and let's say, and you're a fantastic poet and all this other stuff, if they need a rifleman and just a basic rifleman, here's your ammunition, kill the enemy, that's what you're going to do. And that's just reality of Marine Corps. And I'm a Marine. I'll always be a Marine. And I'm very thankful that I'm alive. So this has gone 8 minutes now, my goodness. And let's start with the tuck word, T-U-C-K. During the Marine Corps school training, schooling time in 67, one of my friends in the school, Mike Paris, I saw him in Vietnam later. He had caught malaria, and I went to the hospital to visit him. Anyway, in the school, on a weekend, he lived in San Diego. And, his mom was like a Marine mom, it was very traditional, a real mother, would all these Marines, like chickens to a hen, would gather, as often as you could. Usually it was once a week, and we'd go up to his house. He was on top of a hill in Metro San Diego. I forget exactly what part of San Diego it was. And Mike was driving his car, and I was the only passenger. No seatbelts. Thick plastic covering on the seats. A Corvair, and I think it was a 65 or 66 Corvair, rear engine. If you understand what a Chevrolet Corvair was, it was their rear engine development for a rear engine automobile, probably to try to compete with, at that time, the Germans with the Volkswagen. And so we're speeding along, and and I'm sitting there, and I don't mind speed, and it's hardly anybody on the road. It was an unusual road. I mean, it was a pinkish pavement, the asphalt or whatever. I don't understand asphalt too much, but in unusual, like orangey type lights. It was getting near. It was dusk, and we're doing 80 miles an hour. And there's an island. There's an island in the middle of the highway. There's two lanes going in the direction we're going, in the opposite direction, two lanes, and there are a lot of islands. And I understand that. And so there was a break in the island so that you could get off the highway without some kind of a other way of getting off highways. And he says, "Watch this, Dave." And he puts the brake on a little bit and cuts through the island break, into this road. And this is a road apparently where he lived. His mother lived on the top of a hill that was, you could see the hill up ahead as you went into this street, which was bordered with big hillsides that had been gouged out to create the road. And there was a hill that went straight up on the right, and then another road that went down and around, and then what used to be a hill that had been gouged out by that equipment, that when they, road making equipment. And in the middle of that, there was a keep right sign. And we're going, we immediately, when he turned and we made it into the road off of the highway, but we're basically out of control. We weren't spinning, we're going straight ahead, but he had lost the manual control, his ability to drive the car. It just was, we were going so fast, and we just smacked into the keep right sign, just buried it, hopped onto the side, the hillside. There was a lot of what's called ice plant in California. It's not grass, it's a succulent plant, and tore up the whole ice plant, and then angled up a little bit, going up his road to this house that we had missed, that we would have kept right and gone up the hillside, bounced onto that road, maybe 20, 30 meters up the road. They were working on the road. They were putting in curbs. And a real curb is quite large. When they bury them, you just see the little teeny bit what you call a curb, but it's buried in the ground and it's very, very deep. But they're real big, and they were lined up on the hillside going up the hill, and behind that was a big earthen embankment straight up. And so we hopped onto that road, and we're going right for these out of the ground curbs, waiting to be sunk into the road. And we're screaming, screaming, and we go right for we're perpendicular, whatever. We're going straight for this earthen embankment with the curbs. The Corvair hits the curb, and it flips up in the air, and it does one somersault and ends up upside down, smashed, parallel parked on a little bit halfway up the hill to going towards his mother's house, and the engine is roaring. And I remember, God's given me a good memory. He's restored it, and that's a whole nother story. And I remember passing Mike in the front seat, and I remember looking at him. It was like everything was in slow motion. And you're looking back at it, knowing what you know now. You hear stories about this, where everything goes in slow motion, and well, that's what I remember. And I knew that the back of my head was going to smash into his driver's side window, which was up. And I just knew in a moment that I was going to get, smashed, a terrible head wound, maybe even decapitated, I don't know. But it was all in a moment, and I heard this voice. And it wasn't Mike, and it was a command. And the voice was Tuck, Tuck, like you're in a floor exercise or something. And I just obeyed. I just tucked my body. My head missed the window, and then next thing I remember, the engine, we're upside down. I smelled gasoline. So maybe the tank is dripping, and and Mike says, I hear Mike says, shut the engine off, shut the, and I kind of reached up. Now we're upside down, and I kind of reached up. I was now in the driver's seat. He was where I was in the passenger seat, and his brother was in the back. His younger brother, who was thinking of becoming a Marine, and so we're going to be talking to him through that and up at his house. His mother's up there waiting for us, and there's no other cars. This is just And I shut the engine off, and we get out of the vehicle. I mean, we really just had to carefully get out. There was broken glass everywhere. The back window was open up enough we could crawl over it and get out the back. Again, it's upside down, and the three of us, are dazed, and we walk up the hill, make a phone call at his mother's, and the California Highway Patrol shows up, and we go down the hill to meet him. And because we explained everything on the phone, and this guy, he quickly showed up. And he's one of these guys you see in the TV or in the movies. He's quite large, probably 6'5", 6'6". He's got those air driver sunglasses that have the silver. You can't see his eyes. He's got the campaign hat on and a Sam Brown belt, and big, boots that go up to his knee, and they're shiny, and he's just imposing. And this guy could be God. Okay, he's the boss, and he's there with a clipboard and a pen, and he's doing the drawing, and he's explaining. He's looking at the skid marks, and in the keep right sign that gets just completely leveled, and he's explaining it. He's doing all this, and we're in deep shit. Excuse my English, but we're really in deep doo-doo. And we're with it. We come down, and he sees us. He said, "Get over here, come here." And the three of us, were at attention basically. And Lance Corporal Young and Lance Corporal Parrish and this newbie, that his brother that wants to be a Marine, half scared out of mind. And we're still kind of in that area. If you've ever been in car accidents and you make it through, I mean, there's a time when it's almost like a dreamlike state. I guess it's shock. And so we're standing there, and then he gets done, and we're looking up at him, and we can't see his eyes. And he said, he's looking down, and he says, "Gentlemen, somebody upstairs really, really must love you a great deal, because you three should be in little bitty pieces and a lot of red." And it's like, "Yes, sir." And we're waiting to we're going to get a ticket, get thrown in jail, take our licenses away. No, none of that. He just said, "You should be very, very dead, and you're not. And you need to be thankful for the man upstairs, because he must really love you a lot." And so that's the story of Tuck. God saved our lives, saved my life. I heard him, Tuck. I didn't get my head smashed or decapitated, and just one of those stories. And now I'm 75 years old now. Back then I was like 18, maybe 19. And I just want to share the story to God's glory for His mercy, because it's the mercy of God through and in Jesus Christ that I'm here talking to you. So God bless you, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.